The alien queen's command. Marry my daughter and secure our line, human. The impossible proposal. The transport vessel shuddered as it descended through Aeolia's atmosphere, and Marcus Reed gripped the armrest tighter than he wanted to admit. Through the viewport, the planet gleamed like a sapphire wrapped in silver clouds, its 3 moons creating haunting shadows across unfamiliar continents. He'd spent 6 months preparing for this diplomatic mission, studying Aeolian customs, learning their formal greeting protocols, memorizing trade agreements down to the smallest clause. Nothing in his briefings had prepared him for beauty like this. The capital city of Luminara sprawled below, its spires constructed from some translucent material that caught the light and scattered it in prismatic cascades. Marcus had represented Earth in dozens of negotiations, but never had the stakes felt quite so heavy. This alliance could open trade routes that would benefit billions. Failure wasn't an option his superiors would tolerate. The palace rose at the city's heart, a structure that seemed to grow organically from the crystalline bedrock. As Marcus was escorted through corridors that hummed with soft, ambient light, he rehearsed his opening remarks. He'd meet Queen Thesara, present Earth's proposal, discuss terms. Standard diplomatic procedure. Simple. The throne room shattered every expectation. Queen Thesara sat upon a seat that appeared carved from starlight itself, her presence commanding despite her relatively small stature. Her skin held a faint luminescence that Marcus had read about but never witnessed, and her eyes, a striking amber color, assessed him with an intensity that made him feel simultaneously welcomed and evaluated. "Ambassador Reed," she said, her voice carrying a melodic quality that translation devices couldn't quite capture. "Your journey was pleasant, I trust?" Marcus bowed the Aeolian fashion, right hand over heart. "Your Majesty, the honor of visiting your world far exceeds any discomfort of travel. On behalf of Earth, I bring greetings and hope for mutual prosperity." Thesara's lips curved into something that might have been amusement. "How diplomatic. I appreciate directness, Ambassador, so I shall be direct with you." She leaned forward slightly. "I have reviewed your proposed alliance. The terms are acceptable to Aeolia." Relief flooded through Marcus. This was going better than... "However," Thesara continued, and his relief evaporated, "there is one additional condition, non-negotiable." Marcus kept his expression neutral. "I'm authorized to discuss modifications, Your Majesty." "This requires no discussion, only your agreement." Thesara's eyes never wavered. "You will marry my daughter, Princess Kyra." The words hung in the air like something physical. Marcus blinked, certain the translation had malfunctioned. Forgive me, Your Majesty, but I don't understand." "I believe you do." Thesara rose, descending from her throne with measured grace. "Aeolia needs genetic diversity. Our population is stable, but limited. An alliance with humanity offers more than trade. It offers biological renewal. My daughter will marry a human of exceptional character and ability. You meet our criteria." Marcus's mind raced. "Your Majesty, I'm honored, but surely there are others more suitable." "There are not." Thesara's tone allowed no argument. "You're unmarried, accomplished, healthy, and your psychological profile suggests compatibility with Kyra's temperament. Our scientists have reviewed your genetic mapping. You're ideal." "But I'm here as a diplomat, not a..." Marcus struggled for words. "This is highly irregular." "Irregular for humans, perhaps. For Aeolia, strategic marriage alliances are tradition." Thesara stopped before him, studying his face. "Do you find the prospect so distasteful?" "No, Marcus caught himself. "I've never even met the princess." "That," Thesara said, a hint of warmth entering her voice, "can be remedied immediately. Kyra." A door Marcus didn't notice opened, and she entered.
Princess Kyra moved with controlled grace, her expression carefully neutral. She was younger than Marcus by perhaps 5 years, her features delicate but strong, her hair a shade between silver and pale gold that caught the light and made her luminescent skin more pronounced. When her eyes met his, violet, he noticed, not amber like her mother's, he saw intelligence, pride, and something else. Resignation. "Ambassador Reed," Kyra said, her voice quieter than her mother's but no less refined. "Welcome to Aelioria." Marcus bowed again, his training taking over while his thoughts spun. "Princess, it's an honor." "Is it?" Kyra's question carried an edge that made Thesara's eyes narrow slightly. "Kyra," Thesara said warningly. The princess drew herself up. "Forgive me, Mother, but shouldn't Ambassador Reed and I at least be consulted about this arrangement before you announce it as accomplished fact?" "You are being consulted now," Thesara replied calmly. "No," Kyra said, meeting her mother's gaze. "We're being informed. There's a difference." The tension in the room thickened. Marcus cleared his throat. "Perhaps the princess and I could speak privately to discuss the proposal." Thesara considered this, then nodded. "A reasonable request. Kyra, show the ambassador to the northern garden. You have 1 hour before the evening meal." Kyra's jaw tightened, but she inclined her head. "As you wish, Mother." She turned to Marcus. "Follow me, Ambassador." As they left the throne room, Marcus caught Thesara watching them with an expression that blended hope and calculation. Whatever he'd expected from this mission, it certainly wasn't a royal marriage proposal from a woman he'd met 5 minutes ago. The northern garden proved to be less a garden than more a miracle of botanical engineering. Plants Marcus couldn't begin to name grew in careful arrangements, many producing their own soft light. A stream burbled through crystalline rocks, and the air smelled of something between jasmine and starlight. Kyra walked to a bench overlooking the water and sat, her posture perfect, her face unreadable. Marcus stood awkwardly nearby, searching for words. Finally, Kyra spoke. "You're wondering if this is truly necessary." "Among other things," Marcus admitted. She looked up at him, and in the garden's gentle light, he saw the frustration she'd been hiding behind her royal bearing. "My mother doesn't make idle demands, Ambassador. If she says Aelioria needs this, she believes it completely. She's a good queen, a good mother, and she's placing me in an impossible position." "Both of us," Marcus said quietly, sitting on the opposite end of the bench, maintaining respectful distance. "I came here to negotiate trade agreements, not this." "And I'm to be traded like rare metals or technology, a commodity to secure genetic diversity." "I don't see you that way." "You don't see me. We've known each other for 10 minutes. But her tone softened slightly. "I apologize. This isn't your fault." They sat in uncomfortable silence, the sound of water filling the space between them. Marcus studied the princess from the corner of his eye. She held herself with rigid control, but he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands gripped the edge of the bench. Finally, Marcus asked, "What happens if I refuse?" Kyra's laugh was short and humorless. "Then you return to Earth, the alliance fails, and my mother finds another candidate, someone who might not even ask that question." She turned to face him directly. "Will you refuse?" Marcus thought of everything riding on this mission, the trade routes, the technology exchanges, the cultural bridges that could be built. He thought of his career, his duty, the expectations of an entire planet. He thought of the woman sitting beside him, proud and trapped by circumstances neither of them had chosen. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I'd like to get to know you before deciding, if that's acceptable." For the first time, Kyra's expression softened into something approaching genuine emotion. "That's more than I expected." "Thank you, Ambassador." "Marcus," he said. "If we're considering marriage, we should probably use first names." "Kyra," she replied, and almost smiled. "Though I suspect this is going to be the strangest courtship in Aeliorian history." Marcus couldn't help but laugh. "Or human history." The hour passed too quickly, filled with careful conversation and cautious questions. As attendants came to summon them to dinner, Marcus realized something unsettling. He hadn't found a clear reason to refuse the Tsar's demand. The princess was intelligent, composed, and clearly caught in the same trap he was in. But marriage? To a woman from another world, another species, another life entirely? As they walked back toward the palace, Kyra spoke quietly. "Marcus, whatever you decide, I understand. Truly." He looked at her, seeing the vulnerability she was trying to hide behind royal bearing. "1 hour wasn't enough. I need more time to know you, to understand what this would really mean." "How much time?" "I don't know. How long before your mother demands an answer?" Kyra's expression was wry. Knowing her, she'll expect an announcement before the week ends. 7
Reluctant beginnings. The first form of dinner was a disaster wrapped in diplomatic courtesy. Marcus sat across from Kyra at a table that seemed designed to maximize the distance between them. 12 courses arrived in succession, each more baffling than the last. The third dish appeared to be still moving, which his briefing had mentioned was a delicacy, but his stomach disagreed strongly. "You're not required to eat everything," Kyra said, her tone carefully neutral, "though the shimmer root is quite safe, despite appearances." Marcus set down his utensil. At least he thought it was an utensil. "I appreciate that. Cultural exchange is gonna take some adjustment." "Indeed." Kyra took a small bite of something that glowed faintly blue. "Tell me, Ambassador, do all humans accept marriage proposals from strangers, or is this flexibility unique to you?" The barb landed exactly as intended. Marcus met her eyes. "I haven't accepted anything yet, Princess, and I'd prefer honesty to passive aggression if we're going to spend time together." Color rose in Kyra's cheeks, a pale gold flush that was oddly fascinating. "You're right. I apologize. Again, I seem to be apologizing to you frequently." "We're both in an impossible situation," Marcus said, softening his tone. "Maybe we could try being allies instead of adversaries." Kyra considered this, then nodded slowly. "Allies? That's reasonable." She gestured to the attendants, who began clearing dishes. "Would you like to walk? The palace has extensive galleries. We could talk more comfortably." The galleries proved to be stunning corridors lined with artwork that shifted and changed as they passed. Kyra explained that the pieces were created using light-reactive crystals, each one capturing different emotional resonances. "This one," she said, stopping before a swirling pattern of deep purples and silvers, "was created by my grandmother. It's called The Weight of Crowns." Marcus studied the piece, seeing how the colors darkened toward the center, creating an almost physical sense of pressure. She understood responsibility. She understood that duty can be a beautiful cage. Kyra's voice was quiet. She married for alliance, too. The stories say she grew to love her husband, but the first years were difficult. "Is that what you expect? Difficult years?" Kyra turned to face him, and in the gallery's shifting light, her expression was unguarded. "I expect to do my duty to Aeolia. What I feel about it is secondary." "That's a lonely way to live." "It's a royal way to live." She resumed walking, her pace quickening. "You wouldn't understand. Humans seem to value individual happiness above collective need." Marcus caught up to her. "That's not fair. We understand duty. I'm here, aren't I? Considering upending my entire life because it serves a greater purpose?" "Considering," Kyra repeated, "not committing. There's a difference." They'd reached a balcony overlooking the city. Luminara glowed beneath them, lights twinkling like terrestrial stars. The view was breathtaking, but the tension between them was suffocating. "You want me to commit right now?"
Marcus asked, frustration bleeding into his voice. To marry you after 2 conversations? Would that make you happy? Happy, Kyra laughed, but there was pain in it. I'm not supposed to be happy. I'm supposed to be useful, to secure genetic diversity, to be the bridge between species. She gripped the balcony railing. My mother chose well. You're accomplished, intelligent, genetically compatible. On paper, you're perfect. And in reality? She finally looked at him. In reality, you're a stranger who looks at me like I'm a problem to solve, who weighs my worth against trade agreements and career advancement, who, her voice cracked slightly, who probably will say yes because refusing would be professionally inconvenient, and then we'll both spend our lives pretending this was a choice. The words hung between them, raw and honest. Marcus felt the truth in them like a physical blow. She was not entirely wrong. You're right, he said quietly. I have been weighing this like a negotiation. But Kyra, what else am I supposed to do? Your mother gave me 7 days to decide my entire future, to commit to a life with someone I don't know, in a world I don't understand, following customs that are completely foreign to me. So leave, Kyra said. Go back to your ship and return to Earth. Tell them the price was too high. Is that what you want? She was silent for a long moment. What I want, she finally said, is to be more than a transaction. But I don't think either of us has that option. Marcus moved to stand beside her at the balcony, careful not to touch her. Maybe we don't, but we have 7 days. Can we at least try to be honest with each other? No diplomatic deflection, no royal restraint. Just 2 people trying to figure out an impossible situation. Kyra studied him, and he saw her walls waver. Honest? Completely. Fine. She took a breath. I think this whole situation is unfair. I think my mother is brilliant but ruthless. I think you seem decent, but I resent that your decency might trap us both. And I think... She hesitated. What? I think I'm terrified of making the wrong choice, of failing my people, of spending my life with someone who's only here because he had to be. Marcus felt something in his chest soften. This was not the composed princess from dinner. This was someone scared and vulnerable and very young to carry such weight. I'm terrified too, he admitted. I've spent my career building diplomatic bridges, but I've never had to become the bridge. And the worst part, I can see why your mother chose this. Politically, strategically, it makes perfect sense, but personally, he trailed off. Personally, it's madness, Kyra finished. Complete madness, Marcus agreed. They stood together in silence, but it felt different now. Less hostile, more like 2 people standing at the edge of something vast and uncertain together. Tomorrow, Kyra said, there's a garden walk scheduled. It's traditional for courting couples. Very formal, very public. Will be observed and judged by half the court. Sounds delightful, Marcus said dryly. It will be terrible, Kyra said, but there was the ghost of a smile on her lips. But allies face terrible things together, yes? Yes, Marcus said. They do. As they returned to their separate quarters that night, Marcus lay awake thinking about the woman who would either become his wife or a diplomatic footnote. She was prickly, proud, and clearly as conflicted as he was. But beneath the royal armor, he'd glimpsed someone worth knowing. The question was whether 7 days was enough time to discover if worth knowing could become worth loving. Somehow, he doubted it, but he was beginning to think he had to try.
Breaking barriers. The garden walk was every bit as awkward as Kyra had promised. Courtiers watched from careful distances while Marcus and Kyra maintained precisely the appropriate space between them, close enough to converse, far enough to remain proper. Every gesture felt choreographed, every word measured.
"This is excruciating," Marcus muttered, smiling politely at a group of nobles who were clearly gossiping about them. "Welcome to royal courtship," Kyra replied, her own smile fixed in place. "Usually this would happen over months. We're doing the compressed version. Lucky us." They completed the required circuit of the formal gardens, made appropriate comments about the flora, and nodded to approximately 100 observers. By the time they returned to the palace, Marcus felt exhausted, despite having done nothing but walk slowly. 2 days down, Kyra said as they reached the private corridors. 5 to go. "Is all of this going to be formal performances?" Marcus asked. Kyra paused, glancing around to ensure they were alone. "Not if we're clever about it," she lowered her voice. "There's a festival tonight. The Festival of Twin Moons. It celebrates the alignment of our 2 largest satellites. The city will be crowded, chaotic. If we had an excuse to attend..." "You want to sneak out?" "I want to stop performing for a few hours," Kyra said. "The festival is open to everyone. We could blend in, actually talk without an audience. Unless that's too improper for a human diplomat." Marcus grinned. "When do we leave?" They met after nightfall at a side entrance Kyra knew about. She changed into simpler clothing that wouldn't immediately mark her as royalty, though she still drew attention. Her natural luminescence was difficult to hide completely. Marcus had abandoned his formal diplomatic attire for something more comfortable. "Ready?" Kyra asked. "Lead the way, princess." "Tonight I'm just Kyra," and she slipped through the door. The festival transformed Luminara into something magical. Lanterns floated through the air, powered by some technology Marcus didn't understand. Music poured from every corner, strange instruments creating melodies that were alien yet somehow familiar. Vendors sold foods that glowed and sparked, performers danced with ribbons of light, and everywhere people celebrated. Kyra moved through the crowds with visible relief, her formal posture relaxing. During festivals, social hierarchies dissolve. Everyone is equal under the moons, she explained. They wandered together, sampling foods that ranged from delicious to challenging. Marcus tried something called star honey that tasted like liquid sunshine, while Kyra laughed at his expression when he bit into a spice pod that made his mouth tingle for 5 minutes. "You're enjoying my suffering," Marcus accused, though he was laughing too. "Immensely," Kyra admitted. Her smile was genuine now, transforming her features. "You should see your face. Diplomatic immunity should cover food poisoning." "It's not poison, it's culture." She handed him a cup of something cool and sweet. "This will help." Their hands brushed as he took the cup, and Marcus felt a small jolt at the contact. Kyra pulled back quickly, but not before he saw the color rise in her cheeks again. They continued exploring, and Kyra proved to be an excellent guide. She showed him hidden courtyards where musicians played ancient songs, explained the meaning behind traditional dances, and introduced him to foods he'd never dreamed existed. Gradually, Marcus realized she was sharing not just the festival, but pieces of herself. "My father brought me here," she said quietly, as they watched performers juggle orbs of light. "Before he died. He'd disguise us both and we'd wander for hours. Mother never approved. She thought it was beneath our station. But he said rulers who don't know their people can't truly serve them." "He sounds wise." He was. Kyra's expression grew distant. "He died when I was 12, a rare illness we couldn't cure. After that, Mother became more rigid, more focused on duty and legacy. I think she's afraid of losing me too." "Is that why she's pushing this marriage?" "Partly." Kyra watched the performers. "But she's also right. Eloria's population is small, isolated. We need new genetic material, new perspectives. This isn't just about me. It's about our entire species' future." "I consider that. That's an enormous weight for one person to carry," says the man representing an entire planet. "Fair point," Marcus smiled. "We're both trapped by being useful, aren't we?" spectacularly trapped. But Kyra's tone was lighter now. She pointed toward a structure made of crystal that hummed with energy. "Come on, I want to show you something special." The structure turned out to be the entrance to caves beneath the city. Kyra led him down winding paths, and Marcus began to see bioluminescent plants creating patterns on the walls. The deeper they went, the more spectacular it became. "These caves are sacred," Kyra explained, her voice echoing softly. "When Aelarians come of age, we spend a night here alone, reflecting on who we want to become. It's where I decided I wouldn't just be a decorative princess. I'd study statecraft, learn our history, try to be worthy of the crown." "You are worthy." She looked at me, her face illuminated by the gentle glow surrounding us. "You don't know me well enough to say that." "I know you care about your people. I know you're willing to sacrifice your own happiness for them. I know you're smart, strong, and brave enough to speak honestly even when it's difficult." He took a careful step closer. "That seems pretty worthy to me." Kyra held his gaze, something shifting in her expression. "Why are you really considering this, Marcus? The truth." He could have deflected, made it about duty or career or politics, but they'd promised honesty. "Because I keep seeing glimpses of someone extraordinary, someone I want to know better, and because maybe, just maybe, this impossible situation could become something real, if we're both brave enough to try." The silence stretched between them, filled with possibility. Kyra's luminescence seemed brighter in the cave's dim light, her eyes searching his face. "I'm scared," she whispered, "of wanting this, of hoping." "Me too." She reached out slowly, and Marcus met her halfway. Their hands intertwined, the gesture small but monumental. In the bioluminescent caves beneath Luminara, with festival music echoing faintly from above, something fundamental shifted between them. "5 more days," Kyra said softly. "5 more days," Marcus agreed. But as they stood together in the sacred darkness, hands clasped, both knew the decision was already being made. Not through logic or duty, but through something far more dangerous and beautiful. They were beginning to hope.
Unexpected intimacy. The days following the festival blurred together in a way that both thrilled and terrified Marcus. What had begun as forced proximity transformed into something he couldn't quite name, but felt everywhere. In the way Kyra's laughter came more easily now, in how they unconsciously gravitated toward each other during formal functions, in the loaded silences that spoke louder than words. On the 4th day, they were required to attend a ceremony in the Hall of Ancestors. Marcus stood beside Kyra as priests chanted in ancient Aelorian, the language flowing like water over stones. He didn't understand the words, but the solemnity was universal. "They're blessing our potential union," Kyra whispered, leaning close enough that he could feel her warmth, "asking the ancestors to guide us toward wisdom." "What do you think they'd say?" Marcus murmured back. "My father would say, 'Follow your heart.' My grandmother would say, 'Do your duty.' I still don't know which is right." Her hand rested on the ceremonial rail between them. Marcus shifted his own to touch hers, their fingers barely overlapping. It was the smallest gesture, but courtiers noticed. He saw the approving nods, the whispered conversations. They were being watched constantly, evaluated, judged. "I'm tired of performing," Kyra said quietly after the ceremony ended. "Will you meet me somewhere tonight? Somewhere private?" Marcus's heart quickened. "Where?" "The observatory, top of the eastern tower, midnight." Her eyes met his, vulnerable and determined. "Just us. No expectations, no audience. I need to know if this feels real when no one's watching." "It feels real to me." "Then prove it." She walked away before he could respond, leaving him standing in the Hall of Ancestors with his pulse racing and his certainty crumbling.
This had stopped being about duty somewhere between the festival and now. The question was whether she felt it too, or if he was creating meaning from proximity and pressure. Midnight found Marcus climbing the tower stairs, his diplomatic composure abandoned somewhere around the 100th step. The observatory occupied the tower's crown, a circular room with transparent walls that offered unobstructed views of Aeloria's night sky. 3 moons hung at different positions, bathing everything in overlapping light. Kyra stood at the center, her back to him, her silhouette ethereal against the cosmos. "I used to come here when palace life became too suffocating," she said without turning. "It helped me remember how small my problems were compared to the universe." "And now?" "Now the universe feels small compared to my problems." She finally faced him, and the moonlight caught her features in sharp relief. "My mother expects an answer tomorrow. Yes or no, marriage or abandonment of the alliance." "I know." "Do you also know that I haven't been able to stop thinking about you? That every conversation leaves me wanting more? That I lie awake wondering if you feel even a fraction of what I'm feeling, or if I'm just desperate enough to imagine connection where there's only obligation?" Marcus closed the distance between them. "You're not imagining it." "Then what is this?" Kyra's voice trembled. "We've known each other less than a week. This is madness." "Complete madness," Marcus agreed, echoing their conversation from days ago. But now the words carried different weight. "But Kyra, I haven't felt this alive in years. Every moment with you is terrifying?" "Yes, and exhilarating, and right, in a way I can't explain." He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a strand of silver gold hair from her face. "I came here to negotiate treaties. I never expected to find you." Kyra's breath caught. "Marcus." "Tell me to stop, and I will," he said quietly. "Tell me this is just politics and pressure, and I'll believe you. But if there's any chance you feel what I feel—" She kissed him. It was tentative at first, a question more than a statement. But when Marcus responded, pulling her closer, the kiss deepened into something urgent and real. Her luminescence brightened against him, and he felt the warmth of her skin, the rapid beat of her heart matching his own. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kyra pressed her forehead to his. "This is dangerous." "I know. If we do this, if we commit to this, there's no simple escape. Royal marriages on Aeloria are binding, permanent." "I know that, too. But I'd rather take that risk with you than spend my life wondering what we could have been." Tears gathered in Kyra's eyes, catching the moonlight. "I'm still scared." "So am I. But Kyra, I'm more scared of losing this, of losing you." He smiled softly. "Even though I barely know you, somehow that feels impossible now." She laughed through her tears. "You're either very brave or very foolish." "Probably both. But I'm yours, if you'll have me." "This isn't just about want anymore," Kyra whispered. "If we marry, you'll be bound to Aeloria, to me, to a life you never planned." "Plans change," Marcus pulled her closer, feeling her melt against him. "Sometimes they change for the better." They stood together in the observatory, wrapped in each other and moonlight, and Marcus felt the last of his resistance crumble. This woman, proud and scared and brilliant, had become essential in days. It defied logic, challenged reason, and felt more true than anything else in his carefully constructed life. "Stay with me tonight," Kyra said softly. "Not for duty or politics, just because you want to." Marcus's answer was another kiss, deeper this time, filled with promise and surrender. They sank onto the cushioned benches that ringed the observatory, hands exploring with growing confidence, barriers dissolving. Tell me about Earth, your home, what you're leaving behind. An apartment I barely used, a career that felt increasingly empty, friends who wouldn't recognize this version of me. He pulled back to look at her. Nothing that matters as much as this moment. Kyra's fingers traced patterns on his chest. My mother will be insufferably smug when we announce this. Let her be smug, Marcus smiled. She's getting what she wants. Is she? Or are we getting what we want, and she's just taking credit? Marcus considered that. Does it matter? No, Kyra said and kissed him again. I suppose it doesn't. They talked for hours, sharing histories and hopes, learning the topology of each other's souls. Marcus told her about growing up on Earth, the diplomatic corps training, the loneliness of always being professional. Kyra shared memories of her father, her struggles with royal expectations, her dreams of being more than just a beautiful symbol. As the moons tracked across the sky, they grew bolder. Touches lingering, embraces tightening, the space between them charged with possibility and promise. It wasn't about duty anymore. This was choice, raw and real, and terrifying in its intensity. Tomorrow, Kyra whispered as dawn approached, her head resting on Marcus's chest. Tomorrow, everything changes. Tomorrow, Marcus agreed, his fingers tangled in her hair. Everything begins. They descended from the observatory as sunrise painted Luminara in shades of gold and amber. Hands clasped, hearts committed to a future neither had planned but both now desperately wanted. The decision was made. Now they just had to tell the universe.
The choice of hearts. Queen Thessera sat upon her throne with the satisfied expression of someone whose plans were proceeding perfectly. Marcus stood before her, with Kyra at his side, their fingers intertwined in a way that announced their decision before words could. "Ambassador Reed," Thessera said, though her eyes sparkled with knowing amusement, "I trust you've reached a conclusion regarding our proposal." "I have, Your Majesty." Marcus squeezed Kyra's hand, drawing strength from her presence. "But before I answer, I have conditions of my own." Thessera's eyebrows rose. "Conditions? How bold!" "Mother," Kyra began, but Marcus gently interrupted. "I'll marry Princess Kyra," he said clearly, "but not as a diplomatic bargaining chip, not as genetic material for your empire's future. I'll marry her because I choose her. Because in 6 impossible days, she's become the most important person in my world." The throne room fell silent. Thessera's expression remained unreadable, but Marcus saw calculation behind her amber eyes. "And my condition," he continued, "is that this marriage be recognized as exactly that, a choice between 2 people who want to build a life together. Not a treaty clause, not a genetic exchange program, a marriage." "Marcus," Kyra whispered, but he could hear the emotion in her voice. Thessera studied them both for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her regal features. "Ambassador Reed, I believe you misunderstand me." "Your Majesty?" "I never wanted a treaty clause." Thessera descended from her throne, approaching them with surprising gentleness. "I wanted exactly what you're demanding, a genuine union between 2 people capable of building something real together. Kyra, did you truly think I would trade you like cargo?" "You gave him 7 days," Kyra said, her voice tight. "You made it sound like pure politics." "I gave you 7 days to discover what I already knew. That you and Ambassador Reed are remarkably well suited. That given time and proximity, genuine affection would likely develop. That sometimes duty and desire can align beautifully." Marcus felt a laugh bubbling up. "You manipulated us." "I created an opportunity," Thessera corrected. "What you did with it was entirely your choice." Her expression turned more serious. "Yes, Aloria needs genetic diversity.
Yes, this alliance serves political purposes. But I would never force my daughter into a loveless marriage. I simply ensured she met someone worth falling for." "That's remarkably calculating," Kyra said, but her anger was fading into reluctant admiration. "I'm a queen," Thesara shrugged elegantly. "Calculation is my nature. But I'm also a mother. Your happiness matters as much as the Empire's future." She turned to Marcus. "So, Ambassador Reed, do you still wish to marry my daughter under these clarified conditions?" Marcus looked at Kyra, seeing his own wonder reflected in her violet eyes. "Absolutely. Though I'm slightly offended you thought I needed manipulating." "You're a diplomat," Thesara said dryly. "You overthink everything. I simply accelerated the inevitable." She gestured to her advisors. "Prepare for the binding ceremony. We have a wedding to announce." The next hours passed in a blur of activity. News of the engagement spread through Luminara like wildfire, met with celebration and curiosity. Marcus endured countless meetings about ceremony protocols, cultural traditions, and the political implications of his decision. Through it all, Kyra remained at his side, her presence grounding him. But that evening, as preparations reached a fever pitch, a crisis emerged. "There's been an incident," Thesara's chief advisor announced grimly. "The Keleth Consortium has lodged a formal protest. They claim the alliance with Earth violates existing trade agreements. They're threatening to sever relations with Eloria entirely." The room fell silent. The Keleth Consortium controlled crucial supply routes. Their withdrawal would cripple Eloria's economy for years. Thesara's expression hardened. "Show me the documentation." As advisors scrambled, Marcus felt the weight of the situation settling over him. This was what he had feared from the beginning, that his presence, his choice, would bring harm instead of help. "We could postpone, give time for negotiations." "No." Kyra's voice was firm. She stood up, addressing the room with royal authority. "The Keleth Consortium has been looking for leverage for months. This isn't about the marriage. It's about testing our resolve. Princess, the economic impact will be significant, but we're not going to let fear dictate our choices. Eloria has survived worse than trade disputes, and we're not abandoning something real because of political pressure." "Kyra's right," Thesara said, surprising everyone. "Call their bluff. If the Keleth want to sever relations over a wedding, that reveals their true character. We'll find other partners." "Or," Marcus said slowly, an idea forming, "we use this. Earth has been trying to establish relations with the Keleth for years. If Eloria formally requests Earth's assistance in mediating this dispute, we create a three-way dialogue. The marriage becomes the catalyst for broader diplomatic cooperation." Thesara's eyes lit with understanding. "Turning a crisis into an opportunity. I see why they made you ambassador." "Will it work?" Kyra asked. "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "But it's better than surrendering to threats." The decision was made. Messages were dispatched to Earth and the Keleth Consortium proposing mediation talks. The wedding would proceed as planned, making a statement about Eloria's confidence and Earth's commitment. That night, alone in her chambers, Marcus found Kyra on her balcony staring at the stars. "Having second thoughts?" she asked softly. "Thirds and fourths," Marcus admitted. "I'm about to marry a woman I've known for less than a week, potentially tanking her planet's economy in the process. It's slightly terrifying." Kyra moved to stand beside him. "We could still postpone. Give time for the political situation to settle." "Is that what you want?" She was quiet for a moment. "No. I want to marry you tomorrow. I want to stand before my people and choose you, loudly and publicly, regardless of what the Keleth or anyone else thinks." She took his hand. "I want to be brave enough to choose happiness." Marcus pulled her close, breathing in her warmth. "Then that's what we'll do. Even though it's madness? Especially because it's madness." He kissed her softly. "Besides, We established early on that madness is kind of our thing." Kyra laughed against his lips. "Our thing. I like that." They stood together under alien stars, holding each other against uncertainty and fear and the weight of consequences they couldn't fully predict. But beneath the anxiety, Marcus felt something unshakable. The certainty that this woman, this moment, this choice was right. The binding ceremony took place the following afternoon in the Grand Hall, witnessed by thousands both present and watching from across Aloria. Marcus wore formal diplomatic attire adapted with Alorian elements, while Kyra was breathtaking in traditional wedding garments that seemed woven from moonlight itself. As they stood before Thessera and the gathered witnesses speaking vows in a blend of English and Alorian, Marcus felt the surreal nature of it all. A week ago he was a career diplomat following a routine mission. Now he was pledging his life to a woman from another world, binding himself to an empire he barely understood, throwing his carefully planned future into beautiful chaos. "Do you marry Marcus Reed of Earth?" Thessera asked formally. "Not from duty, not from obligation, but from the truest desire of your heart." "I do. I choose her." "And do you, Kyra, Aloria of Aloria, choose Marcus Reed of Earth, not from duty, not from obligation, but from the truest desire of your heart?" "I do. I choose him." Kyra's voice was strong despite the tears now falling. Thessera smiled, genuine warmth replacing her usual calculation. "Then before the ancestors and the assembled witnesses, I declare you bound. Hearts joined, lives intertwined, futures shared. What began as necessity has become choice. What was demanded by duty has been claimed by love." The hall erupted in celebration as Marcus and Kyra kissed, sealing vows spoken freely despite being proposed under pressure. When they finally broke apart, both laughing through tears, the weight of what they had done settled over them. They were married, bound, committed to building something unprecedented together. At the reception, as guests celebrated, and political tensions temporarily dissolved into joy, Thessera approached them. "Well played, both of you," she said quietly. "You took an impossible situation and made it yours." "Did we have a choice?" Kyra asked, but her tone was affectionate. "Always," Thessera said firmly. "Every moment, you could have walked away. You